Hello and welcome to episode 351 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, a place where the small press makes one hell of a big noise. I'm Vince Hunt, returning after a bout of being ill.
Yeah,
but
you're right now, babes.
Yes, I'm ill and I still
Feeling
love
better.
comics. Yeah, so I thought I'd come back to do this and be joined by the creator of the webcomic Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
The master of ceremonies, be they tea or wedding, Tony Esmond.
God, I'd love to be master of ceremonies at a wedding. Imagine that mess.
You're the sort of person, it wouldn't surprise me if you just sort of said, "Oh yeah, I've been ordained." You know, you just drop you drop it on in conversation. Just
I've said it to Joe. If you two get married, I will get ordained and do it myself. That has been a discussion we've had.
Tony, so I'll tell you a story about the groom.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
And that's why it's never going to happen. Anyway, we're also joined by a guest this week. We're joined by artist extraordinaire. He's a comic-making machine, and we don't say that lightly, an absolute machine. And he's the creator of the martial arts epic Snake Claws and the awesome anthology No Brainer. Welcome back to the show, Edison Neo.
Hey.
Hey, thanks. Great to be back.
Did you just cheer at your own name? Hey.
Yeah.
The Fonz.
Hey.
It was just complaining how hot it was in Singapore, weren't you? Just to do
Yes.
Good man.
Yeah.
Yes. It's really hot.
Well, you're on the coolest place in the world now, so
In our Vince, you missed this.
what?
Yeah.
What professionalism?
Yeah,
No,
okay,
I must say, well done last week, gents. It was a brilliant show, and also second week of our Manga Month, or Mang Month, as I accidentally put it when I posted the episode.
I love like clockwork, Ludology pointed out.
Yeah, of course he does.
He's like a machine, isn't he?
Yep.
Yeah. Good lad.
Yeah, it's nice to know that when we put out episodes, there are people, those sort of people go, I think you'll find that this.
Yeah.
Keeping us legit, keeping us humble.
Honest. Yeah.
I do like Hawkeye pedantry. There's something for it.
I love the way you talk, Dan.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And dance.
I mean, that sentence sounded like it came out of like the 1200s.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
The Stephen Fry of the Awesome Comics podcast.
We'll run off to Belgium in a minute.
That man, Stephen Fry has a wealth of knowledge. But do you know where you can find a wealth of comics?
Comic House.
Yes.
Yes, our lovely sponsor, Comic House, who for some reason stick with us through thick and thin, illness and unprofessionalism, but we love them anyway and they love us. Love us all around, as long as it's about comics. Comic House is an indie comic marketplace with a difference. They love comics as much as all of us. That includes you listening at home. If you go to their website, there's a huge selection of titles, indie and small press titles on the database. If you self-publish, you can list your book on there, and it's another avenue to start selling your work straight away. They have a featured section on the site. They've also got an app, the amazing Comic House digital app. Basically Netflix for comics. Only £3 a month subscription service, or whatever that is in wherever you are in the world. But it's not that much compared
9,000 rubles.
It's not that. Well, compared to how like some digital books cost, that's absolutely nothing really, and you get access to an enormous library of digital indie comics that's being added to all the time. I mean, Dan, what is on there at the moment?
We've got a couple of new titles, both of which excite me to read out. We've got Penguins, Master of Nine.
Sorry, the way you said that, excite me. What was that?
Yeah.
Right. Story synopsis. As a result of a recent typo, it turns out the Penguins are not just a jack of all trades, but rather a master of nine. The A5 landscape book is 100 pages of black and white penguin humour featuring the puns, parodies, dad jokes, and cringing gags you come to expect from our penguin crew. In this outing, the Penguins pick their favourite film, look at the royal lineage, and do some butchery and find the Wi-Fi password. By friend of the show, Alan Henderson.
Yeah, I've got this. It's very good.
Treat.
Yeah. Lovely toilet reading in the nicest possible way.
Yes. And we've got this one sounds great. Sherlock Holmes versus Skeletor, Volume 1. By,
What?
Garth Brooks.
What?
Garth Brooks, the country and western singer.
I don't know if it's the one and the same, but it would be
No.
quite the
Cool.
the career turn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Story synopsis: Sherlock Holmes and Skeletor are next door neighbors and play ridiculous pranks on one another.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, send the cover for this to you because it kind of looks like an old kind of ye olde English etching
It's,
of.
it sounds crazy. I mean,
It's Garth and not Gareth, is it? Sorry to interrupt.
It might be Gareth.
No, if it's Gareth, he's been on the show. He's good egg.
I don't.
Oh yeah.
I don't think of an old etching when I think of Skeletor versus who was it?
Playing with your melon, isn't he?
It's
Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes. I suppose, yeah, that makes sense. It
There
all
you go.
makes sense. Of course, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's clearly
Yeah.
obvious. Yeah.
I've sent it to the group chat, but you can look at that cover on Comic House.
You're a machine today.
Well, I've got up my game now that Vince is back.
What
Yeah.
what are you talking about? You absolutely smashed it last week, and you'll smash it. If you join Comic House now and start your 14-day free trial, and you'll smash through loads and loads of comic books that you can read, including work
Yeah, it's
from,
Gareth Brooks.
Yeah.
from
Gareth.
us,
Why
and
do I call it Garth? Sorry, Gareth.
even our lovely guest has work on there. So
There you go. No
Can
higher
I just-
recommendation.
Quickly give a shout. If you want to win 2 weeks,
yeah.
is that correct? I've got the other prize.
3 months.
2 weeks plus 2 months and 2 extra weeks. A Comic House subscription. You can enter our Comic House contest. And the question is, who wrote the Tech Wars Chronicles on Comic House, which you can read all the issues of. And there's 2 names.
You can give it away to a friend. You don't have to have it for yourself.
Yes.
It may be that you already have it listening to the show, but you might want to give it to your mum or something, or your gran or something.
As a bit of a giveaway, one of those names is William Shatner, obviously, but we're looking for the other guy's names. I imagine the other guy did a lot of the heavy lifting when it came to writing the script.
oh, calm down, Tony.
Did William Shatner do the audio book? I'd buy that. That'd be good.
What for a comic book? And it's
What am I
like
talking about? I already
3
own
hours
the
long.
books and the comics. So there you go. And the VHS.
There you go. So get those questions into us either via the social media or our DMs or our emails. What I'll do is I'll put that question out on the Twitter so people can respond to that, and we'll pick it out randomly from there or something. Just make it easier to get that answer to us. There we
And
go.
the other
Bang.
competition, we've got some answers, so we're gonna reveal that one towards the end of the show. So listen out to see if you won the Martial Law hardback.
Yes. But to find out more about Comic House, go to comichouse.com today.
Slick
There you
as
go.
fuck.
Is it really?
No,
Yeah.
not really.
No.
But yes, as I said, this is the third week of Manga Month, where we're taking a dive into just an absolute sea of comics, basically. Just a whole nother world that has been massive influence, and just discovering so many great books ourselves anyway, because this manga, or shonen comics and things like that, that's kind of where it is a lot of the time at the moment, isn't it? It's certainly taking over the world.
I think I was chatting to Eamon about this yesterday, and I think he asked in Waterstones, his local Waterstones, and they said, I think I'm right in saying it was 4-1 or 3-1, I can't remember, sales compared to graphic novels compared to manga. Manga's outselling everything. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah. And certainly, we can't fathom it. I mean, where you are, Edison, in Singapore, what is the ratio to sort of your Western superhero comics and stuff compared to everything else? What's it like over there?
Okay, the ratio is kind of weird because the young people they go crazy for the manga, and the older guys are into the Western comics. So
It's a bit like that here, I think.
when I go, yeah, exactly. So we have the middle-aged guys in their 40s and 50s. They are stacking their gigantic pull list of DC comics and Marvel comics. And then, do you guys have Kinokuniya in London or UK.
I don't think so.
No.
Basically, it's a Japanese bookstore. Yeah, it's a Japanese bookstore that it's kind of like the only store that really carries a large range of comics in Singapore anymore. And so when I always go there to get my books, the kids are swarming the manga section, and the manga section is growing every month. They have more shelves every time I go back. Yeah.
What are the
skewing?
What are the main languages, Edison, there for comics?
Okay, so everything is in English.
Right.
Primarily in English, and there is a big chunk of comics that are in Chinese, Mandarin, and those are usually, like, especially when it comes from Japanese manga, right? They'll be translated into Chinese. So there's a big bunch of readers that they read manga in Chinese. Yeah,
that's interesting, isn't it?
Mostly English. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
It's interesting. I wonder what they're translating into Chinese. You know, there might be different books, might there, from because we don't see enough of it. We only see the tip of the iceberg, don't we? It's the translation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, for me, my introduction to manga was actually Chinese manga. So my friend had brought a bunch of slam dunk manga to school, and it was all in Chinese. So I ended up reading it. I mean, I am able to read and speak Chinese, although I'm very bad at it, as most of my age group. Yeah, but that's how I got my start.
So Mandarin's rather than Cantonese, it tends to be Mandarin, does it? So I think Mandarin's more mainland China.
Yeah.
I'm saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, the manga is still same. It's the Japanese manga, the shonen manga, just that the words are in Chinese characters.
Gotcha.
Right.
So is it kind of is it the same titles that are big? What kind of the big titles?
Oh yes. So when I was growing up, I mean, I grew up in the 90s and in the 2000s, and Dragon Ball is huge, Slam Dunk huge, Pokemon huge, Bleach, Naruto, what else? There are all kinds. I mean, the kids that were bringing manga to school were all the big ones that, One Piece, and stuff like that. So I would say your biggest hits on Shonen Jump, they're all popular over here as well.
Okay. Yeah. So what's the culture like in Singapore for comics? Is it, because I don't know if over here it's very niche. We kind of lost that comic culture. Is it as widespread as Japan, or is it more like English American markets, or how do you find it over there, man? Is it more accepted? Is what I'm trying to say,
I would say it's kind of like you guys over there.
Oh, is it?
Very niche. There's very few readers. I mean, I would say right now there's more like kids reading manga, but I don't think they even care about the Western comics at all. My introduction to comics was through the animated series. It wasn't. I didn't even know there was a comic shop in Singapore that I can buy comics from. And so even right now, I mean, I would say most people don't read comics. There's not many creators as well. There's a small niche group. There's a small community, but it's really small.
Right.
And we have one or two internationally renowned guys, but that's it. Yeah.
Interesting. It's weird because the whole kind of the manga anime setup, like one feeds into the other and goes around the world. But with the Western stuff, and you've got the MCU drawing in so much money, there's no pipeline from that to the comics, is there? I think we'd all agree on that. I've not got any hard data at hand to say that, but
I do have a friend who is a huge fan of the MCU movies. He's like a Tony Stark fan all the way. But once I start mentioning about comics, he'll set a hard line. He'll say, no, I'm just a fan of the movie. It's not a comics, not a comic.
Yeah.
It's like if you like the comics, you're a loser. That kind of vibe.
It's just strange that up kind of like it's so similar, the scenario you kind of come across to us, and it's crazy. It's almost identical. There's a real kind of a disdain almost for kind of the Western comic. But the manga seems to be absolutely dominating. It doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon.
And we talk a lot about, you have to capture the next generation of readers with comics. And it seems like that generation of readers is very much reading manga. That's what's exciting them. Whether there's, sometimes they do some very savvy, there's a Netflix animated show. And then there's a wealth of books for them to read afterwards. They're definitely more savvy when it comes to...
I always wonder about that Netflix thing. Is it just that the Netflix and the streaming services were after more content? And they were like, well, this is an untapped resource. We'll go to this. And I think it just happened to be a coincidence, not just a kind of specific aim of the Shonen Jump or whatever to kind of like, well, we need to get this in front of Westerners' eyes or whatever. So
I think it's very much these streaming services. There's always going to be not enough content. You need to keep giving people new content all the time. And just look at that untapped well. Well, a couple of years ago, it was an untapped well of so many animated series, and unlike, we've lambasted movies, sort of going, why don't you just put why don't you try and help out the comics at the same time? But they'll never do it. But I think it's quite funny how like kids will watch the animated shows and then they'll want more of it, so they'll go to their but they can
They're so
then
closely aligned though, aren't they? I think that's the difference, isn't it?
And also they can go to their bookshop, not necessarily a specialised comic book shop, but just a general Waterstones, just a genuine bookshop, and the stuff will be there.
I think it's the difference, because I think new manga is new manga wherever you are. So whether it be bookshop or news agents or comic shop, but new comics is specifically aimed at comic shops, and that's where the shrinking market is devolving almost.
Yeah.
But if you want the new issue of Chainsaw Man, you're as well to get it in Waterstones as you are to get it in Gosh.
Yeah.
You might hear a bit more about that one later.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice. Interesting. No, I hear good things, Edison, about the Singapore Comic Con. Is that something you go to, and is it good or?
I haven't been to one actually. Right,
I think I might have asked this before, but a friend of mine called Sheldon Go, he's a Malaysian comic artist. He works at Zenoscope. He goes there, and he says he does well at it actually.
I see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the biggest con in the whole of Southeast Asia. So, in the years that we had the cons over here, everyone from the region will actually come over. Right. And there are actually quite a few big stars that do guests. That do guest star, like Greg Capullo, Frank Cho, and stuff like that. That I haven't been to one.
Cho's a gangster.
Basically, my heroes haven't been here.
Okay.
The outrage king.
Cho's just been in the UK, isn't he? He's been tour in the UK, isn't he, this week? He makes me laugh so much.
He's what a ledge.
Yeah.
He's been at Stonehenge, isn't he? There's pictures with him and his partner at Stonehenge. Large in it.
I very much hope to see photos of you behind a convention table one day in the future, Edison. I mean, sure.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've signed up for the con for the past 2 years, but it's always been cancelled because of COVID.
Okay.
Maybe this year.
Well, the thing is, it may have been cancelled or postponed or whatever, but in that time, it's not exactly as if you've sat around twiddling your thumbs, because you keep
You've
making comics.
To be fair.
I'm thankful that it's cancelled, because it just gives me more time to get more comics, so that I don't just go to the con and have nothing to sell and nothing to do.
Oh no! Well, you've got a graphic novel, you've got an anthology series, not to mention like all the sketches and stuff you do.
Every day there's something new I see online.
Yeah. So now I feel a bit more safer.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and we're gonna tell you all where to get more of Edison's stuff a little bit later in the show. That's the thing. You see, you leave them so they have to come. They have to stick around.
Right, for the competition as well.
Like a pro. But yes, with each sort of week of Manga Month, we've obviously, as we've already started, been talking about the culture and just general output of the medium. But there's always a specific little flavour to it, a little angle we like to give. And this is one that we're sort of doubling up. And there's one that Dan is particularly excited about. Now we're looking at sort of like, I mean, obviously with the Awesome Pod, we usually go lean towards the action storytelling. And that's kind of how we're doing it this year with Manga Month, and so we're looking at sort of martial arts and also some big mech, mech comics. Now I'm not going to call them giant robots. That's what they are, but let's call them mech because that seems to be the term for it. That's a genre of comics that you're quite excited about, aren't you, Dan?
Yeah, oh god, I've sort of been into that kind of stuff. I didn't realize quite early how early on I got into it as kind of little bits of kind of TV and various animation clips, and then like just got on board with the giant mech stuff.
Yeah,
I've never really drawn it, to be fair, but
I can't imagine drawing it. Let's start with the mech before moving on to the martial arts, because I know even when I wasn't didn't read any sort of manga or there was always, when you're looking through your previews or your Wizard magazines or whatever, I would just always see like these statues of Gundam or things like that. I mean, Gundam was the one word that constantly stuck with me. But there's so much more than that. I mean, what is it about it, Dan? That because there's so many different versions of it across the genre, isn't there, with manga?
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't like massive giant robots? I think you're in the same camp as like the kaiju stuff. Huge, great big
Godzilla.
Cool looking robots fighting in cityscapes, like smashing stuff up. It's just great. Like I feel like it's kind of not come on leaps and bounds, but like the introduction of like 3D, I think's kind of helped kind of bring those kind of the ability to draw them and make them real a lot easier in more modern times. Just really, it's something I'm going to come back to actually, because it's not something I'm completely on board with. But it seems to kind of like loom large, mecha over both manga and anime. I'm not quite sure the origin. I tried to do some sort of cursory reading as to why that is.
I looked up a little bit, and there seems
Astro
to be
Boy.
Yes, that's what I was about to say, man. Yep. Yeah, Astro Boy is kind of a mech, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've talked about him a few times. There's actually two areas to it. There's super robot and real robots.
Right. Okay.
And which is also cut down into piloted and remote controlled versus piloted and sentient.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes
interesting
sense.
Areas.
Yeah.
Astro Boy is essentially a retelling of Pinocchio in some respects, isn't it?
Yeah.
But with more fighting. which is where Pinocchio did fall down
the nose. Yeah, there's no robots in Pinocchio, which has made it shit.
No, straight off the bat.
I think my first experience of it was quite early. Was Robotech.
Yes,
and that's why I first saw it. And I was at a convention, early comic convention in the early '80s, and someone showed a film of some Robotech. And we all went nuts, and there was a petition sign. You had to sign to try and get it on the BBC. That's how long ago. And then I found they brought out a novel series of Robotech, believe it or not. So the only one I could find was novel number 13, which I read and didn't really understand. And then I think, who had it? Was it Eclipse? I can't remember off the top of my head now who had it, but somebody had it.
Would have been Eclipse.
Yeah, somebody released it as was it Kamiko? Can't remember. Somebody like that released it as a sort of. It almost looked like they'd taken stills from the film and stuck it on the page. You know, it's almost a bit like that. But that's a huge deal, Robotech. I think it's still going, isn't it? They sort of relaunch it and change it a bit every time, don't they?
Definitely think it's one of those series that they kind of come back to. It's the same with kind of. There's a number of series they just go back and sort of slightly reimagine or carry on the story in like a different universe or different characters, but still with the same sort of precepts. Especially with Gundam, I remember like the Eclipse stuff. Didn't they do like Maya the Psychic Girl and Area 88? I remember buying like a comic pack of like, must have been like for a quid or two, and you got 5 random comics, and it had like Area 88 and Maya the Psychic Girl. And I was
it
like,
Ranma a half or something? What was that one? Yeah.
But I tell you, when I first came across it, there was a TV show, and it ran early mornings on a weekend on. It might have been Channel 4 or something really odd back in the day, and it was called Starfleet, which I subsequently found out it's called X-Bomber. And essentially it's like Thunderbirds, but with a giant transforming robot.
Okay.
The 3 pilots sort of join their ships up together, and it's a guy in a suit, but it looks fucking great, and they have space battles, and coming off as sort of like Star Wars and all that stuff, being a bit of a junkie of that, and then seeing giant transforming robots, it was an
sci-fi.
easy.
Sci-fi was a hard find back in the day.
Yes,
there wasn't that much you could see, so we tended to watch everything. You know, we'd even watch something like Space Precinct or something. You know.
Yeah, I was sort of saying this, Uncle. Back in the day, I mentioned this on Twitter. Like, I'd take any superhero film because that's all we had. I'd watch fucking Red Brown dressed up as a Captain America with a see-through shield because it's either that or nothing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We got the Incredible Hulk TV series. It was really boring. So consequently, if there was a big robot on television, we'd watch it immediately.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Giant robots are just they're just a go-to when you're a kid, especially like when you're a young lad. They're just awesome. It's like one of the earliest toys I remember. You know when there's toys or like you inherit some from your brothers or whatever, and you're not quite sure where it originated from, but you have it now. And I didn't know until years later. In fact, only in the past couple of years, I had this big robot. It's very simple looking. I did not know it was Ray Dean from Shogun Warriors.
Oh right, that might have been worth a few quid, man. I think.
Yeah,
I mean, real talk. That's the first time I saw giant robots. Was Godzilla or Shogun Warriors, the comics? You know.
Yeah. And Ray Dean was like this sort of like. Because it was a large toy, there wasn't much articulation, but you could have removable hands, and I remember when you're a kid, it's the tactile nature of things, and the head, which was sculpted well, but it was soft plastic, almost rubber in some ways.
Yeah,
and I was just
when I looked at Shogun Warriors, I always sensed that they were sort of samurai giant robots, weren't they? That's kind of the way I looked at them.
I mean, wasn't it essentially all about flogging toys?
Yeah. Same as Rom, wasn't it? Yeah. Same time, yeah. I suppose Rom is Mech, kind of, isn't it?
Yeah, but a lot of Mech stuff. Even though you think of obviously the giant robots, and obviously there's the crew that pilots the robots, or they all have their own robot that turns into a larger robot, etc. But when you watch them or read them, the stories are they're more about the people. I mean,
yeah.
It's the people or the politics, or there's something going on, isn't it? It's almost like the giant robots are the background for it, aren't they? They're just sort of like there's lots of interpersonal relationships going on, or usually it's sort of not to the point of intergalactic trading disputes, Star Wars.
There's always arguments going on between.
It's like soap opera drama. Between characters, and then you've got kind of like.
I showed you, didn't I? I've just started reading Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Yes,
and,
which is one of the big ones, isn't it? That's one.
I think so. Yeah. Have you got any favourites, Edison? What are you of that sort of area of manga?
Yeah. So, funnily enough, my introduction to all these big robots were the Power Ranger.
Right. The classic.
Course,
Your Sentai.
Yeah. So. After much later, I find out that they are all inspired from all these Japanese origins. And the funny thing is that when I was a kid, I had Gundam imagery everywhere. It was my friends had it in their houses. When I go over to my friend's house, his brother has an entire collection of an entire display of Gundam and stuff like that. But I was never interested in it. Until now, it was not. Right now, I'm like super into it, and I don't know why. It seems like it should be a little kid thing, right?
Yeah.
So all this giant robot stuff, I never had any interest in it, and only when I started drawing, when I started drawing seriously, I kind of took a lot of interest in it. Yeah, but I would say most of my influences for Mech have come from the Western side, and stuff like Power Rangers and Transformers, actually.
Okay. Right. Yeah, of course, Transformers.
And the thing that really pulled me into the giant Mech genre was actually Pacific Rim. When I watched the movie around 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think
that was the one,
like the Sentai stuff, I'll be correct if I'm wrong here, but that came from, they did the live action Spider-Man, didn't they? In There's a Japanese TV series, and then he had a robot which they brought into the series, Leopardon or something. So obviously, the Western Spider-Man doesn't have a giant transforming mech robot, which to his detriment in some ways. And I think like they said, well, if we have some guys running around in spandex and call in their robot, we can do this ourselves. We don't need to rely on Spider-Man. And there you go. Sentai was born, and then we got it back to us in obviously in the form of Power Rangers. So that's a sort of a strange origin story.
I think because of the nature of like the mech and like the giant robots and stuff, there's always, I mean, maybe less so now that it's just people originally they'll just create original stuff with giant robots and stuff. But certainly 2 decades ago, it was impossible not to. There was always the toy line. Toys were driving so much of a market. You know,
Spawn.
I mean, Transformers originated, I believe. I've got to think back to the toys that made this episode now. I believe that was a Japanese toy that then morphed.
Takara?
Yeah, that morphed into something else, isn't it? Yeah. So there was very much sort of backwards and forwards from east and west and sort of bouncing off one another, which gave birth, you know, these toys gave birth to genres. Because I think that's an unseen part of comics and storytelling in general. When you're a kid, you've got these toys and you're telling stories when you're just playing with your toys. You know, you've got like the giant monster and you've got your giant robot, you know, and that 10 years later, that creator's probably creating a comic or a novel or a film or whatever about a giant robot fighting a giant monster, you know. So, I mean, it's always, I think giant robots have probably inspired so much of the current generation of creators and storytellers because of those the toy boom. Do you think?
Yeah, well, the creators like who were kind of like, right, we've got this toy line now, we want you to come up with a storyline. So like Larry Hama had to sculpt the entire G.I. Joe mythology, and I think they did the same with like He-Man and obviously Transformers, and then that influenced another generation, which could essentially be us, like telling the stories based on.
And we don't know. The thing is, sometimes you just,
toy.
You know, like, so many kids out there probably had toys of different make of, you know, they didn't know what they were, but they had a giant robot. Do you know what I mean? And they started creating something, and that is the seed that then evolves into probably a comic book writer 10 years later. But then obviously after the toy boom, there was then the animation boom, and everything was coming along, and it just felt like it feels like mech, even though no one really says it so much, is kind of an evergreen genre.
Oh God, yeah.
Well, funny you've mentioned that. I was talking to the guy in the comic shop yesterday about it because I said, "Oh, I want to talk. We're talking about mech. What have you got?" And he hummed and hawed for ages, and he said it's not as popular as horror. It's a phrase he used.
Well, okay.
And but then I sort of said, "Oh, what about Neon Gen?" And he went, "Oh yeah, that one." Yeah, so I got that.
Are you going to talk about any recommends, or are you going to talk a bit about that now, T?
No, I've not finished it, man. I'm only about a
okay.
third of the way through it. Yeah, I've got a different one for the recommends. But...
It's a strange one, that, because like it started with the anime, and everyone was kept on going on about this, and I thought I'll give this a go. And like for the first half of the series, it's just a standard kind of like mechs versus invading sort of aliens, angels as they call it in the series, and then it changes quite radically into kind of like a musings on the human condition and loneliness and.
Oh, hold on, what? Hang on. So it's giant robots versus like alien creatures, and then we're talking. It goes into 2001. What is the meaning of life?
Maybe if they were a bit sad.
Yeah,
it's another because you kind of like the mech they get into, the Evas. They're actually living creatures themselves, cased in armor, and they have to synchronize with their Eva, and the higher it is, the better they perform. And obviously when they get filled with angst and self-doubt, they can't sync with them, so you can't launch them. So when this massive alien's like smashing up the city around you, and they're kind of like filled with dread and God, I'm so alone, that they can't go out and fight them. But the series,
there's a metaphor there somewhere.
The series ends with a real I can't even recall the ending. It's such a non-ending. I think it kind of upset fans that they did like a follow-on film, which I've yet to see, that kind of addresses the ending and does the true ending. But there's a number of follow-on films afterwards that carry it on and tackle it. But it's an odd series, definitely.
Okay.
If I'm not wrong, they mentioned that the creator was dealing with some mental health issues, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And he was writing the ending, and the ending was kind of his way to process his own thoughts about life. So I guess it ended up that way. Yeah.
I hope nobody looks into my comics.
If you did that as a comic, that's one thing. But this is like a manga, like an anime.
Yeah.
So like, there's a whole team of creators working on this and thinking, oh, this is going a bit fucking off script. What's going on here? What happened to the robots fighting?
I think that can be a trapping of just comics in general, not necessarily like manga. Is definitely when you see the posters for these, or the covers for these things, and you think, my God, just giant robots. This is great. I just want to see things fight things. And you open up and you've got 200 plus pages of dialogue and talking about feelings. There's kind of like it can be quite easy to lose people sometimes, I think. Yeah. And probably, I mean, certainly we've all watched a show or an animated film or show and just thought, I'm actually quite bored.
Yeah, just wanted to get around to
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't need to be fights all the time. Of course, it doesn't need to be fights, but
it could be banging.
But or banging.
But that's one of the things in that the anime, like all the protagonists are like children, like 12 turning 13, and they like put them in some sexual scenarios, and you think, I don't really like watching this. It's not very. Wow. It's just a bit kind of uncomfortable. Or maybe kind of like the. Culturally it's a bit different, but I was like, oh man, this whenever this was done, it's not I personally don't think it's aged too well for me, because I didn't really enjoy seeing those bits, if I'm honest. Right. One of the things I was going to mention, one of the reintroductions of me for kind of into the mech stuff was when as I imagine quite a few Western readers might have picked up Appleseed from Masami Ishiro.
They came out in like prestige format comics, didn't they, over here for a while?
Was it from Dark Horse?
I think it was.
It was because they had the Appleseed animated movie, that was how I was introduced to it.
Yeah, on VHS.
And that's a fantastic movie, the original one.
He's attributed with the first landing on a roof and all the concrete smashing up.
Really?
This cyborg, I can never remember. He's Breros or something.
Yeah.
He does
an awesome design.
He jumps and lands on the roof, and it might have been done before
the superhero landing.
Yeah, the superhero landing, kind of like he lands and like all the floor is shattered up, and even from an early age, when I saw those kind of visuals of what Masami Ishiro is doing now, I was like, fucking hell, this is like the next level. This is something else.
You see it reflected in so much modern sci-fi now, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. If you look at any sort of robot on Netflix in the TV series, there's a little bit of the Appleseed there, or Pat Labor or something like that, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, he's responsible for Ghost in the Shell, which like had massive impact. Like, that was almost the kind of release of that it didn't quite get up to Akira fever pitch, but there was a lot of interest in it, and even to the point when they brought out that film, and it was enough for people to kick off about Scarlett Johansson being cast as.
I've not seen that.
I started watching it. I was like, it's not really my cup of tea. But
I've watched Ghost in the Shell. I haven't watched that much anime, but I've watched Ghost in the Shell, and there's like Ghost in the Shell standalone something or other.
Standalone complex. That's quite
good too.
But there's those moments that when I remember just when you watch a film and you just think, wow, and the Ghost in the Shell scene at the beginning where she's invisible and kicking that bloke's ass.
That's great.
It like to do that animated is just unreal. How good that is. But that is just a massive influence on what came afterwards, isn't it? It's just there's so much influence that you can take. People can take these things and then take them into deeply philosophical ways, or they can take them and just think, I'm just going to create someone in a cool robot suit that's going to kick some ass.
Don't they do that? Ghost in the Shell is essentially like kind of that what's that Theseus's thing about like the parts of the ship get replaced so many times it's still his ship, and that's the same with Major Kusanagi, like the fact she's a cyborg.
It's like it's like Trigger's broom.
Trigger's broom, to the uncultured among you.
Ghost in the Shell totally does the whole thing of like, we're going to blow your mind with some action that you've never seen before, but this is what it's really about. And then it sort of it slows the tempo down, doesn't it, for a while? But Edison, I must say, you're obviously you're pushing your artwork and you're constantly sort of trying new things. Surely there's got to be some there's got to be some giant robots in your future somewhere. Or does it scare you too much?
I imagine it must be. I can't draw a box, Edison. So drawing lots of boxes on top of each other in cool shapes.
The trick is to draw a very damaged box, so you don't have to do the straight lines. Yeah, but I am definitely been planning for a mecha comic for a while. Right. I really want to do it right. So so I found it quite a nice coincidence that you guys asked me for this, because I really recently only recently that I gained the interest in mecha and comics and stuff like that, and I've been thinking about what's the best way to do a comic for it, get a story done for it without looking at the main tropes of like Gundam and stuff like that. So I've been exploring different things. And,
it'd be great. I'd be all over that.
I really hope so.
So I think for me as well, it's like to me, I prefer the mech we've been talking about, like Evangelion, because you get the cool robots and stuff, you get the fighting with the robots, but you also get that personal human stuff, which I think I like to have a combination. Yeah. I can't quite relate to just Transformers talking to each other. It never clicked for me.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And Tony, it's kind of funny that you say that, because that's exactly the thing I'm trying to explore.
Right.
I'm trying to do a robot comic where there's no humans at all, and to make that interesting, like you say, there sometimes needs to be a human connection, right? Because sometimes you can't get invested in the emotions of a robot and stuff like that. But what if?
Well, mate, you managed it. You managed it with a gorilla. You sucked me in with a gorilla. I can see you being all right with a giant robot. Yeah.
So you kind of like your work. Should we leave Edison's style and his work towards the end of when we finish?
I am intrigued by, like, as you say, like a world of just robots. Now, obviously with Transformers and stuff, probably for the ease of animation, so they were very human-like faces. With the lips and everything.
I'm trying to avoid that.
Yeah, you're not. You can still give character to a robot without giving it a mouth, for instance. Is this something you're playing with? Because I think if the character design is enough, people will just immediately latch onto a character.
Yes.
And we all
that's the exact thing I'm trying to do.
Exactly. And as we know with Spider-Man, you don't need a fucking mouth for people to like the character. So, as you say, you only recently sort of looked at it. What have you found in your sort of like research, for want of a better word, and looking into this genre? What have you discovered about it all?
Yeah, so so far what we've been talking about, right? I found it quite funny that in terms of mecha genre, the main thing is always anime, and manga is more. I mean, there is manga based on mecha and stuff, but the only thing people talk about is the anime shows, right? So I began to look into what are the cornerstone manga books that that you want to read when it comes to mecha. And I even did a post on the Gundam subreddit and asked like, can you recommend me some manga that I can get familiar with the Gundam universe and things like that? And there was a whole list, but there's basically not much consensus on what is the main thing to read. So there's one that came out a lot, which is the Crossbones Gundam. It's like a pirate theme kind of Gundam, a story that doesn't have an anime for it, and I've been trying to look into the origins, like there's a manga recently that came out based on the 1979 original story, the anime. It's called Mobile Suit Gundam: The Origin, and that one looks pretty good. And I think there's one that came out in the recently called Mobile Suit Gundam Thunderbolt. and that is the best art I feel so far for me. Like the most modern, and the robots really look good, and I've been trying to learn how to draw and reference using Thunderbolt as a reference point.
Because the thing about the Gundam suits as well, don't they? They essentially almost have the anatomy of an action figure. They're not like huge, bulky, tank-like things. They're usually quite lean. They have like bigger sort of joints, large sort of boots, for want of a better word. So
super complicated.
I was about to say, we've talked before about like character.
Cool.
Yeah, character creation is like, don't make your character designs too complicated, because you're going to have to draw this over and over again. But if you're planning to do like a mech or robot series, you can't avoid it. You have to do do character sheets. You have to do character reference sheets so you can see it from all angles. Is that the sort of thing you're going to be doing?
I have explored it. I try my best to come up with a design that looks cool but not too simple. You know, I mean, one of the main attractions to me for the Gundam stuff is just how complicated and so intricate the robots are. It just looks too cool. Yeah, and that's something that I would like to achieve as well. But yeah, it has to be consistent from panel to panel.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a way to do it. I'm sure these guys figure something out, and I'm sure that I can try something like that too. Yeah. I've
just looked up like Crossbone Gundam, and he's got like if it's the one I'm thinking of, he looks like he has like a cross on his back. Yeah. There's like it looks pretty badass actually. Yeah, okay, right. We've mentioned this word a lot, Gundam. Now I'm going to do the paint by numbers question that some people may want to know, and partly me, Gundam. What is it?
Okay, I can give you a good explanation.
Go for it.
Okay, so Gundam, right, is basically giant mecha that is controlled by a pilot. Is like strict. The rules is that it strictly has to be a pilot that is inside like the chest of the robot, right? And the whole there's not one continuing story. It's almost like Elseworlds. It's like alternate universes. So it started in 1979 with the original anime, and that is kind of like the main timeline, like our 616, right? And then every time the animated series ends, they come out with another one, and depending on the creators, they will probably add some variation to the story. Either it's a few years in the future after the original, or it's a completely different timeline. So it's a very prominent thing in the Gundam universe where they will preface the universe with what timeline is this. So I think the main one is called Universal Century Timeline. Then there's the after disaster timeline or after war timeline and stuff like that. Yeah. So sometimes when you're watching a Gundam anime, it might be an so-called alternate universe, and it's not part of the main continuity. Yeah, so like stuff like Crossbones is probably an alternate timeline. Basically it's like Elseworlds.
Yeah, it's like a like you say, it's like a superhero universe. There's different versions of it. If you want to create your own Gundam in a certain world, then you just make sure you let the audience know it's in this. Yeah.
But the tropes are very, very similar throughout each anime or any series. There's always a war going on. There's like some conflict and some basically very war focused. Yeah. And there's always a kid involved, like a young kid who is super talented at driving these mechs, who doesn't need any training, and he can just kill everyone and stuff like that. Yeah. So there's some of these tropes are quite prominent throughout I mean, I can't speak for all the series because I haven't watched all of them, but yeah, it's quite similar throughout.
Yeah. Plus, it's just an excuse to have some absolutely amazing models that I see. That was one thing I always...
Yeah.
Like,
a lot of people getting models of him, if nothing
it's
else.
proper fucking shelf porn, isn't it? Just
Yeah.
fucking looking
Not
at all
cheap
those...
either.
Yeah.
But this is the stuff you kind of build yourself, isn't it? You don't like get them pre-made. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah,
you
some
have
of
to,
them.
you buy the model and you have to assemble it from scratch.
Like an Airfix model, isn't it?
Crazy.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
fuck that up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd fuck that up. I know I'd fuck that up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know I asked the simple question, but I genuinely, even after a couple of decades of knowing the word Gundam, didn't know
I wasn't
that.
sure.
I didn't know that. I just thought,
I completely understand.
yeah. All I saw was, oh wow, that's a fucking cool looking robot. That was all
I
I.
just thought it was a brand. But obviously there's a bit
a
more to
brand,
it.
totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
And
wow,
there's so many models of the robots,
yeah.
and I can't really tell what's the difference, the small differences between some of the model names. It's so confusing. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a license to print money.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, especially for the collector's market as well, isn't there? But I know in Japan there's like that enormous statue of like a giant Gundam robot as well, isn't there? You seen that? That'd be fucking amazing to
Yep.
stand.
I was saying, like the introduction of 3D is like one of those things that helps bring those kind of comics to life. But at times, like I really miss the hand drawn stuff of.
Yes, I agree.
Bringing it back around to Mashing Shiro, I've got like a couple of his art. Well, I've got 3 of his art books at Intron Depot, and the first one is really insightful because it starts. He's a real kind of junior illustrator when he starts this. Say junior, in comparison to what he does become, and it's got lots of making of. But by the time you get around to book 2, which is a couple of years later, and more so into 3, he starts adding in more 3D elements into his work, and it fucking really jars. It really like. Here's the 3D, here's the drawing, and it just doesn't quite work. And when you go from him hand drawing these big mechs into then trying to make them in 3D and then incorporate 2D imagery, it doesn't quite work. Maybe it's something he sorts out later in his career, but
yeah. I think with those sort of like giant robot thing, especially someone that's piloted by something, when it moves to like a Western audience, I mean, immediately I think it seems to be something that's tailored more to like Top Gun. Do you know what I mean? Where it's that you treat the robots like fighter planes. That's kind of how I see it.
Robotech's a bit like that, isn't it?
Yeah. They're all fighter pilots, and because I think that's a way for us to sort of that's this. I could just do a Battle of Britain story, but instead it's just giant robots.
Yeah.
Actually, that's quite a good idea.
Write it down. Copyright Vince Hunt.
Yeah. I do not. I tell you what, though, and we briefly said this when we talked about Transformers. Any artist that is just full on, making a living, or that's their speciality, drawing robots and these technical things. I will forever tip my hat because it's just something else. Because it's not, and also it's not just the fact that it's all these details, but it is the fact that you can't be squiggly with your line because it has to be all rectangular.
It absolutely shows if it's not right. You can see it a mile off.
The line has to be so sharp, doesn't it? I remember I used to see is it Pat Lee used to do Transformers?
Yes, yeah,
and that made me want to weep because he was the sort of artist where you'd see every fucking pipe sticking out of an elbow socket or something. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe doing that.
There's furious amounts of reference for these kind of things as well. You've got to be spot on. Presumably you give
because someone's going to say it, aren't they? Someone is going to go, well, I think you'll find that their elbow joint isn't there.
Yeah, it's like Dredd and the links on his costume, aren't they? People will kick off if it's more than so many or something.
It's funny what people get angry about, isn't it?
Yeah.
I tell you what, though, I mean, we were saying surely Edison's going to be coming up with a comic, but like, that's hugely exciting, man. That you're coming up with.
That's great news.
I'm all over that.
Talking about kicking off,
I have to think of something.
Yeah. I've got no doubt, Edison, you'll come up with something absolutely fantastic.
I think it's very kind of you to come up and say you're doing that comic just purely because you knew you were coming on the Mech Awesome Comics podcast. Very kind of you.
Now he's got to be like, oh, I've got to think of a comic now. Oh God.
Yeah. Oh, I'm doing this.
Exactly.
No doubt Edison will probably have the new comic out by the end of this month.
Yeah, by the end of the episode.
Yeah. I said people kicking off, we can roll it around to the second part of the show, which is the martial arts.
Martial arts, yes.
So smooth.
Yes.
Last week's gone to your head.
Yeah.
I'm so proud. It's like watching my baby's all grown up, and it's so nice. But certainly from one sort of type of action to another, martial arts comics obviously a huge, and martial arts and fighting as big. I mean, Dragon Ball Z just immediately sticks in my head as just being the ongoing battle. I thought about starting to read that this week on Shonen Jump, but it scared me too much.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the question I asked during the week, Vince. Have you watched Shogun Assassin yet?
No, I haven't.
No.
I haven't. No.
Oh.
I know I need to.
Agami Ito and little Daigoro. I know it's a bit of a bastardized version, Shogun Assassin of.
It's got the good bits in it. It's got the fight in the river and all that
Yeah.
sort of thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a sequence at the end where, like, he fights the Masters of Death, which John Carpenter lifted for Big Trouble.
Oh yeah.
Wholesale, which they're in the desert, and it's just fucking awesome. Because it's kind of got like a kind of a synthy kind of soundtrack, hasn't it?
Yeah.
The film, and it's like a great music cue. But definitely, I've got all the original films, but I've not watched them all because the DVDs, and I was like, oh, I really want to watch these on Blu-ray, and it's like better part of a wanna to get all of them on a Blu-ray, which is quite heavy.
The DVD I've got is one of those really old DVDs where the screen is actually smaller than your telly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really awful. Yeah.
But the original films, like, it's quite a lot of different context to. I think it's more closer to the comics, the manga, than it is to Shogun Assassin, which they kind of just push together the various elements.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more brutal. Like, you see this, like the thugs in it, like, brutalizing people, and it's like, oh, well, they're fucking shits, aren't they? And then they happen to come across Lone Wolf, and he sort of does what he does. But he's very much an anti-hero, the character, isn't he? He's not a straight out good guy.
Fucking dark.
Yeah,
it really
really
is dark. I mean, Lone Wolf and Cub's like that as well, I think. You know, it's got that real dark.
That pervades through the comic as well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
the manga.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. I mean, the first time I saw the comic was first comic to put them out in prestige format. Around, when we were buying everything, Dark Knight wasn't long out, and everything that came out in prestige format, you bought it. And the covers initially were done by Frank.
Yeah,
Frank
I've got some of them.
Yeah, and then they were done by Sienkiewicz, and then they were done by Matt Wagner, I think. And they were real lovely collections, extra big size. I actually find the little, I don't even know what you call them. They're smaller than Digest, aren't they? I actually find them a little too small sometimes. I'd rather have it in that big style for me. But that's an incredible comic. Absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Obviously, I'm a big fan of Hotonoke and the Fist and an All-Star. I mentioned that in the past 2 shows, I think. I'm trying to get a complete run of that in one book from one publisher. Still not managed it.
I mean, a lot of these books have definitely surely been the ultimate examples of the speed line.
Yes.
And as I've noticed with when I'm reading a lot of this stuff, the pages themselves, they're not really heavy pages for a lot of these stories, and they move at a hell of a pace. Like, a book will be like 60 odd pages, won't it? But sometimes 50 of that will be a fight because they love to show it. But certainly with the fighting and action genre, like, manga forever changed the game. With once that sort of started to bleed into Western comics, there was no going back. The amount of speed lines we see everywhere now. And I know, like, Edison, in your work, you got a great sort of use of doing speed lines and blurring and stuff like that. How do you find working with speed lines, actually? I'm never quite sure. I'm not.
I've tried it. I'm not very confident.
I'm not confident with it. How do you get more
You mean
confident with it?
how you speed lines?
Yeah, with speed lines.
Okay, so if you're doing a panel in perspective, you still can put a perspective point and then use the grid to kind of draw the speed lines, right? I mean, those are just straight speed lines. The hard part is the curved speed lines, and sometimes you just gotta go with it.
Just go with it.
Because what I noticed you do, you use a lot of sound effects as part of the direction of the speed, don't you, as well? So I'm looking at the one in No Brainer 3 where you're smashing the alien through the head, and smash, it actually travels the journey that you're taking with the violence, and that's really clever, man. You're incorporating it into
that's directly inspired by manga sound effects. I think
I can see that.
One of the main differences between manga and Western comics is the lettering, the sound effects, and they use the sound effects to such a great effect when it comes to the storytelling. We do see that in Western comics, but it seems like an afterthought sometimes. Sometimes when the letterer does the sound effects last, they kind of just stick it on and things like that. But the mangaka is the guy who is drawing the sound effects, so it ends up being part of the artwork. And I think that is a super important point when it comes to getting the life out of the panel. I actually think we're living in a world, and I call it this occasionally called some artwork post manga, where the influences of manga are so visible on the page of an American comic now that we're seeing that all over the place. Now there's a real sort of blending of styles and influences. I think there's a lot of that even in Marvel and DC. You see it all the time now.
Definitely, yeah. They seem to be chasing. And I think we mentioned this as well. They seem to be chasing that crowd, don't they? By specifically going over for artists who can capture that certain look. I mean, Danny Warren Johnson, as mentioned previously, he's absolutely turned into that skid, and just.
Yeah.
I know you're not a fan of his stuff, are you, Edison? You can't stand him. Is that
How do you know?
What kind of artist do you look for, Edison? To kind of like, if there was an artist you would go to and say, yeah, I'm a big fan of him. Who would they be?
Okay. So Stuart Immonen.
Okay.
Stuart Immonen is my number one idol, I'll say. And Daniel Warren Johnson is definitely up there.
Yeah.
In fact, it was after reading Murder Falcon that I was kind of it kind of opened my eyes, because Murder Falcon was just pure fun and just craziness, right? And it felt very free, and it felt like just a free expression of what the creator, liked. And that I kind of started on Snake Claws right after I finished reading Murder Falcon, because before reading Murder Falcon, all my thoughts of when it comes to writing comics was just like, I need to think of a very intricate plot. I need to get a character that go through this and that, and there needs to be a plot twist and things like that. And then after I read Murder Falcon, I was like, no, the comic doesn't have to be so complicated. It can just be pure fun. Yeah,
it can
and
be.
That kind of freed me to.
It's amazing, isn't it? When you just sort of let go and just be like, right, this is just gonna be fun, and it totally showed in like Snake Claws. I mean, that was what completely like caught us by it. It was like, this is fun comics. This is what's. But then as it went on, you also I saw you sort of develop being able to tell more of a story, tell more of a character, and also like back to murder.
That came with practice.
Go on.
No, you.
No, you talk. You hang up. No, but like for instance, like with Murder Falcon, that was just craziness. It was over the top. It was wonderful, and then at the end, it made me want to cry because because underneath all that, there was the character work going on that you got caught up in, you know. So and Daniel is fantastic at doing that stuff anyway, because like a lot of people just go, oh yeah, it's heavy metal and giant monsters. I mean, who the fuck wouldn't want that? You know, like certain scenes in Murder Falcon were amazing, but then the way it ends in a beautifully sort of quiet moment is just astonishing.
That was the first time I ever teared at a but after reading a comic. You know the last scene. I mean, I hope it's not a spoiler, but the last scene. Oh crap! It's too big of a spoiler. But basically,
it's a sad scene at the end.
When Murder Falcon showed up at the end, I did shed a tear. It was really a touching story. And that kind of opened my eyes, because I never felt that I never thought that comics could evoke such a emotional response.
No. Yeah. But it was partly because you were totally caught up in the fun of it, the fun and kinetic energy of it, and that's what, you know, a lot of these sort of these martial arts comics or action comics that manga and like that Daniel was clearly influenced by. It's the kinetic energy that sort of picks you up and it takes you on the journey, and you're like, this is amazing, this is amazing. Oh wait, I'm feeling things, because like it's like I've always said about. Great comedy has the potential to do the greatest tragedy, because you fall in love with characters because they're one way, because they're like this is a funny character, you know, they're the comedy relief. 10 months down the line, when something tragic happens to that comedy character, you feel it more than someone who's just sad from the very beginning, because you've grown to love a character. And I think that's the importance of this sort of storytelling, that even that's what I love about comics. Like sometimes in the most action-packed comics, they can hit you right in the heart, you know. But from the outside, people go, "Oh, it's just a comic about heavy metal and giant monsters." Just wait till you read it. Just wait till you read it. I mean, I presume that there's a lot of layers going on to Monkey Busters.
See, to me, that's the one that's the nearest to manga.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I wanted to come onto this one, because that was a definite effort.
I was trying to make it a manga.
Yeah.
Right.
I was trying to copy the style. That was an experiment in style.
It's great. It works great, man. It's really fucking great. Mental as well, which is everything I love in a comic. Yeah. You have a love-hate relationship with simians, don't you? Some of them are heroes, some of them just get blown to bits.
It was a funny coincidence. Because I read the article about the real life story about it, and I knew I had to do something. It was too funny. So it's a real story, you know that.
Yeah, let's give a bit of context about this, because Monkey Busters is in No Brainer issue 3. And it is very much, as we're saying, very much manga inspired. You need to check this out, because it's fucking fantastic.
It happens in Japan.
And it's I mean, the basic synopsis is 3 old ladies defending their village against a bunch of monkeys. But what's the true story that you base this on?
It's basically whatever you just said.
a bunch of
literally 3 ladies. There's these monkeys that attack their farm, their village, because of the crops. And they steal crops, and these 3 ladies, they decided to do something about it. They corral the villagers to get this task force going, where they defend against them using air guns and their the hose. Anything they can get their hands on to defend against the monkeys, and fireworks, firecrackers. And that's basically about it. And when it became viral, probably in 2020, and I saw a Twitter thread about it or something like that, and everyone was commenting, make a anime about it, Right. So my first reaction was like, okay, I'm gonna make a comic about it.
We saw lots of stuff on the news and on YouTube because certain areas weren't getting a lot of tourists and footfall, that a lot of the apes and monkeys were just like patrolling and stealing, weren't they? It was
They were
like
getting ape shit.
Yeah, it's like a monkey revolution.
Yeah. So I just exaggerated that so that they are demon monkeys, you know.
That's genius.
That works perfectly. Yeah. People love those kind of stories. Like as soon as people hear the concept, they're like, "Yeah, I'm in there. I like that." Yeah.
Yeah. And I did think about a deeper backstory to why all this is happening, but I don't know. Maybe I'll explore it sometime in the future.
I mean, you've called them Monkey Busters. You've given them a name, so you know it's a franchise waiting to happen. There can be a part 2. There can be a part 2.
I just hope. Yeah, I just hope the real people don't come and sue me.
It's class though, but like definitely, like the techniques you used for that story, definitely fall in line with a lot of the books like we've looked at. I mean, with the black and white and the the use of line and the halftone pattern. I
try to make the sound effects look like manga sound effects as well.
Yeah,
the English words look like the
It's got the motion stuff, but it's also got like the sort of extreme emotions, if you see what I mean, in the faces of a lot of the characters, which is something that tends to be sometimes a little more exaggerated in manga, isn't it? You know, where you get a close up of someone just outraged by something or screaming or crying or something. Yeah.
And I still feel it isn't exaggerated enough.
Hello?
Oh.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, mate. I think you dropped out there. Sorry, geez. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I said I just felt that it still isn't exaggerated enough.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
There's so many sound effects in that strip as well. So many.
Yeah.
But we'll just have to see. So the Monkey Busters won't be back for number 4. But
No.
you're working on 4 at the moment, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Oh.
And I can talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we getting some more Vanguard?
Yeah, we are. But actually, I've been working on kaiju story. Speaking about mechs and giants, so the main story in No Brainer 4 will be a kaiju story, and it's also in black and white. It's just gonna be pure fun kaiju fighting each other, but a bit of a twist. It's called Kaiju Cash. KA $H. And basically the idea is that there's a illegal betting ring.
I was going to say Fight Club for kaiju.
No, not really, but it's about how rich gambling degenerates, they join this Kaiju Cash program or betting ring, and then every time a kaiju battle happens in the city, they will place their bets on which kaiju will win, and the story will follow one of these rich degenerates and how she tries to win get to survive, basically. This illegal betting ring, if you drop below a certain cash level, you will die, basically. So she has to bet on the right kaiju to win.
Nice.
And that's the main gist.
So they can find out more about this at your Patreon. See that unsubtle plug I got in there.
Hey, look at that. Look at that.
I'm on it. It's very good. Yeah, it's full of lovely work. Yeah, I'm on that Patreon.
So what's the address for the Patreon? Is it just Edison Neo?
So my Patreon is patreon.com/neocomic-art.
Yeah, comic art.
So same as my Instagram, same as my Twitter.
Oh man,
that's branding.
Were you quite upset when the Matrix came out, Neo? Was that?
There can be only one.
No, I was happy. Everyone thought I was cool just because of my surname.
Seriously, folks, get on the Patreon because it's great.
Yeah. I noted down a couple of other fight manga I thought I might mention.
Yes, go for it.
So, Violence 22, aka Ricky O. Now, I've seen that movie and we talked about it, Dan.
Yeah,
I didn't realise it was a comic.
Me neither.
Ricky O's a crazy film. I didn't realise that was a comic. That's one where like Disney like pull someone's guts out and choke them
he
with them.
punches a wall down and all sorts of things, isn't it? And it's basically, for those who haven't seen it, it's a sort of super violent prison drama.
Yeah.
That classic genre.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Oz with Kung Fu.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
yeah, but just like someone just gets a bucket of red paint every few minutes and throws it over someone. And then there's one I didn't know about, which is apparently quite popular, called Veritas. Has anyone heard of that?
No, not heard that one.
School kid becomes a student of enlightenment of thunder and lightning. It's like one of those sort of kid becomes student of martial arts style, kind of one. That looks pretty cool. I read up and said, what are there? I found this website that says, the top fight manga. And one said Full Metal Alchemist. Now, I haven't read that. What's that like? Has anyone read that?
No, I've seen a little bit of it back in the day, but I've not. Yeah, I couldn't tell you if it was a fight manga or not. I don't know.
Yeah. And then the other one was that one I mentioned earlier. I can't remember whether we were recording or not. Jujutsu Kaisen.
Yes,
which is massive at the moment.
Yeah, that's one I keep on coming across, even though I don't kind of know anything about it. There's a lot of this stuff. Like I did the same as you, Tony. I did some kind of googling it, threw out some titles, and I was like, "That sounds great." And then I've googled, "Oh, where do I get this?" And there's just I can't find it anywhere. I don't know where to read this stuff.
Yeah, because as much as the Shonen Jump app is great, it only has stuff from a particular company, doesn't it? There's a lot of stuff that's not on there. Like Lone Wolf and Cub we're talking about won't be on there.
No. But there is Neru, Way of the Martial Artist, literally called Way of the Martial Artist. I haven't read it, but
is that on Shonen Jump? Is it?
That's on Shonen Jump. Yeah.
Oh, well, I've looked for that.
Didn't you buy that manga, Tony? The Miyamoto Musashi, the swordsman. I think we were both eyeing up a manga.
Oh yes, I haven't read that yet. Yeah.
So obviously, that'd include the samurai genre, wouldn't it?
I think I know we talked a bit about the samurai genre. I kind of see it as a slightly different one from the martial arts genre. I'm not sure why.
It's maybe they're a subset of one another. I mean, we've only got 4 shows to cover the entire breadth of manga. You could do an entire podcast just on manga itself. So
on samurai comics, you could easily just do it. Yeah. The stuff by the people who did Lone Wolf and Cub, because they did Samurai Assassin. They did like 3 or 4 titles together, didn't it? I think they're called like the Golden Pair or something like that in Japan, aren't they? Yeah, Koiki anyway, I've forgotten it. Kojima. Yeah.
They did was it Kami? I can't remember.
Kazuo Koiki and Koseki Kojima. They're the ones who are called the Golden Couple, I think. But Lone Wolf and Cub is just a classic. You can read it. It's just amazing. Yeah, get on that. Golgo 13, but that's more of an assassin one. It's weird, isn't it? There is a spread across stuff like we talked about last week when we said, you can look up fantasy manga, but it's literally everything we talked about today is going to be on there as well. Yeah. This sort of cross genre, isn't it? Which I kind of like. They don't niche themselves. They're just the 2 I looked up. What about you, Dan? Did you think of any other ones? Find any other ones, or
Dan? Is he there?
Dan?
Are you on mute, Dan?
No, I've got. Sorry, one of the cats keeps on parading up and down the desk and pulled the bloody cable up.
What a slag!
Okay, I just hoiked her out of the room.
Yeah. Oh dear. Yes. Any other martial arts comics you can think of, Dan?
Oh God. No, not. I mean, you could. It's a bit of a stretch to say Demon Slayer is a martial arts comic, but
Crime Freeman.
Yeah.
I know
Crime Freeman. Yeah,
we talked about that.
I back in the day, I was a fan of when they first turned the Street Fighter 2 video games into manga. They were quite good. They were pretty much just fight. Every issue was a different fight. Lots of speed lines. No, not much story. Not much in the way of story. Just lots of punching and kicking.
I mean, the Udon comics, they're essentially kind of manga inspired, aren't they? They draw heavy drafts, as it were, from manga and anime to kind of tell their comic tales, and there's a massive audience for them. Yeah,
but I remember it being like when I saw those. This was way back in the day when the original like manga versions of it. It was a very sort of that was an eye opener because it was a different style when you're so used to like a Western way of doing it, and then you think Street Fighter. I know what this is. You expect it to be a similar sort of style, and it was very different.
Didn't you? Tony sent over a top 10 list for run in a magazine.
Oh yeah, it was in. I was in a comic shop yesterday, and they had a couple of old issues of Manga magazine. It was the one that Helen spoke about a few weeks ago. And it had a top 10 anime. Have you got it in front of you, Dan?
I will fire it up. and we'll take a look at right. Yes,
this is 1996. I think this was
the top 20 anime. I'll read out the top 10. We've got Armitage 3 Part 2, Madball 2, AD Police Volume 3, Goku Midnight Eye Part 2, Vampire Princess Miyu Part 1, Armitage 3. We've got Akira, Goku Midnight Eye, Giant Robo, and it goes on.
And Ninja Scrolls in there. That's what we mentioned. Yeah.
Ninja Scrolls in there. That was fucking awesome, that film. That whole studio, they did Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, which is a bit further down on the list. I've seen most of them. I've not seen any of the Armitage 3. I don't know.
No, it was all over the place. I always used to see the name. Though. Yeah. I just haven't watched it. Yeah.
I mean, Pat Labor, that's another great...
Yeah, I had that double VHS set of that.
Yeah. That could have fitted into the mecha section earlier on. But the animation in that is just the quality of it was fantastic. Really top notch.
Good.
So you think about it, that's relatively limited, that list.
Yeah.
It's quite a lot of the same titles, but that was what you, as Helen might, that's what we had in the day.
So this magazine's from June 1996. It's £2.50. It's got about 50 pages of Akira. It's got the same of Lupin. Is it Lupin the Second?
Yes.
Yeah. And then it's got another strip I hadn't heard of. But I think this cost me £1. It was brilliant. Okay. And I think it was a UK only magazine.
Right. Okay.
So it's if you can find them, you'll find them cheap.
Yeah, 96 was around the time when the real sort of the VHS manga boom.
Yeah, that's what I think they did it off the back of. In fact, the title is the same as the manga video logo. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not sure if they had the sort of cross with the manga written across. I think it must be linked somehow. Yeah. But they're well getting them, and there's a magazine called Pulp, which was also a UK-US release, but had more of the adult stuff in it.
Yeah. It's interesting seeing how that was obviously when the boom was in the 90s, but how animation has, and just comics in general, how everything's just changed. When there was only Akira and a couple of other ones, now there's so many others. The studios moved on from manga to Studio Ghibli, and so much more out there. Not to mention all the comics from One Piece to, everything that we've been talking about. It's a sea of comics and creativity now, which can be, and not only that, but it's not like they do these comics and then 2 issues later the publisher cancels them.
Yeah.
I mean,
get rebooted.
There's always going to be tales of something like that. Like if their strip doesn't do well, then they can't keep doing it, which we've learned. But for us now, looking at it and thinking, let's dip our toe into it. There's no shallow end anymore.
Yeah. I'm good. It's only cost me the price of my mortgage, I think, roughly. To buy these books. Very good.
Yeah. But it has been fun, and have you? I mean, obviously, are you reading a bit more now, especially looking at the Mech and the sort of the Gundam side of things? Are you reading a few more sort of manga titles, Edison?
Actually, I do want to recommend you guys about martial arts manga that I came across a while ago, and it's called Teppu, Teppu. You can Google it. Teppu. Okay. It's about mixed martial arts. Yeah, and it's literally mixed martial arts. And there's this one thing that I really like about manga and the artists, that you can tell how much research and passion they have for a particular topic. So in this story, about mixed martial arts, right? It's about this girl who is super talented at everything, and the interesting part is she's an antagonist in the story, and she's very talented at everything, and she doesn't try because everything she excels at. But she meets another girl in school that is super good at mixed martial arts, and she fails to win her in a street fight. And she kind of gets intrigued to learn mixed martial arts, and she starts to put in effort to try and get better and things like that. And over time she gets better and better. And the main thing about this manga that is so cool is the way they draw the mixed martial art moves, like the arm bars, the shoulder locks, the takedowns and everything. It's almost like an instruction manual the way the guy draws it. Yeah. I mean, you can Google some of the images and
wow,
it's all the small movements, the small speed lines in the legs and the hands and the feet and things like that. It just really it's quite amazing, and it is really just a comic about mixed martial arts. It's nothing complicated. Yeah.
And I think why it might be not look seen straight away is because as I see in like when I'm looking at like this Google search, it's sports. It's under the sort of sports genre because it's mixed martial arts.
Exactly.
But because it's that, like the way they've done the way they're doing the fighting, and you can totally like, there's just a panel. If you just Google it, Tebu manga, there's just a panel of someone kicking someone, and the shin is hitting the side of her body, and the side of her body is slightly crumpling as it's happening. It's like, which is you need to feel the hit. So this looks great.
I like the look of this.
And it's not only about the violence. It's not only about the strikes, like the punches and the kicks. So this one, it has a lot of grappling and submissions and things that are super hard to draw. And two human bodies are,
I mean, doing grappling,
crazy.
That's going to be really tough because there's not a lot of movement, is there? It's kind of you're kind of like trying to get a lock on, or you're trying to move your position. It's not like you're throwing arms and legs around. So interesting. I have to have a look into that one. See how that artist does it.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's not on Shonen Jump, so you have to look for it other ways that I won't mention. But
I mean, there's a lot of this stuff like scenes with manga you just take to the 7 Seas because there's a lot of fan translations.
It's just impossible to find.
I mean, we're in the golden age now of it all. Basically, you just can Google a title and then it'll more likely be on a website somewhere that's like it's got a fan translation. I mean, that's how I come across that woman, because I couldn't get a copy of it for love nor money.
But
there you go.
I just for our Zoom chat, I just dropped a picture of a knee to the face that I felt in
from your house
in the Zoom chat. Just from this book.
Who did that, Joe?
What, knee me in the face? Yeah. Didn't make her a cup of tea. Actually, it's probably my round. Actually, that's
fair play.
Oh yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Like his head stuck on the knee. On the page.
I mean, you can feel that.
Yeah.
Christ. I'll put
and,
that
and
in.
This it goes along. It's one of the tropes where a very young, talented character just completely overpowers an adult.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but there's also like a real emphasis, as well as all the action. What I like about seeing this art is there's also an emphasis to detail. Do you know what I mean? Because this is something where you have to draw the feet. You can't skimp out. There's a panel, and we'll put all these panels in like the Facebook groups and the Slack and everything like that, so people can see. But there's another panel I can see where there's a foot about to connect with someone's face, and you can see the entire tread of the trainer. This is something,
fantastic.
I've just put that in the group as well. But that's something where a lot of people, that would have just all been speed lines. There wouldn't be any...
The point of impact in that first one, mate, it looks like a nuclear strike's gone on. That's the good bit. And they positioned it so well in that panel. It's what is exactly your eye looks to.
It's one of the things, I think we mentioned this on the previous show as well, but like Scott McCloud says, it's even understanding comics or the sequential art one about how a lot of manga artists, when an object's at a distance, it's quite plain, but when it's very close up, it's kind of hyper detailed and real. So you can kind of get a real, oh fuck me, that's what it looks like. There's a texture to it, and it's very interesting.
Yeah,
it's good.
Oh wow, plenty of amazing comics there. We've got even more to add to our wish lists. I definitely need to find some sort of adaptation of that one, man. That one looks great. But yes, I knew this guy. What I love about these sort of manga chats is we give them a sort of like a banner of what we're going to talk about, mech and martial arts, but it ends up being a discussion about the genre in general, doesn't it? And just about the medium, which I love, and this week about storytelling. A lot of it has been about storytelling and just like the effortless way that these comics are doing it. We hope you lot at home are dipping your toes into the comics as much as we are.
I mean, some members of the group have been recommended stuff they've enjoyed, and
I bought a lot of what's been recommended.
Yeah,
actually.
please continue to do that because I want to read more.
Yeah, there's a manga channel on the Slack now, which is, there's loads of stuff pops up in there.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah. So so thank you for joining us to talk about mech and martial arts and everything in between, Edison. And it was worth it just to find out that he's got a new comic on the way.
New mech comic. There we go. You're gonna kickstart that, Edison? Are you or?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, cool.
Excellent.
I'm sticking with that for now.
Yeah. It seems to be working for you, man. Doesn't it?
Yeah.
But in the meantime, there'll probably be about 200 issues of No Brainer coming out by the end of the year. I mean, we joke about it, but your work rate is you just
top notch. Yeah,
it's just really
I
good.
keep trying to leave Kickstarter, and you and a couple of other people are the people who bring me back.
Yeah,
I've got a new one.
Oh.
I'll never leave. I'll never leave now.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
But I'm dying to get back on Snake Claws though.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
That's a favour.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you will be welcome back to talk about that when that launches again.
Yes.
But until then, we've got some more recommendations for you lovely people at the end. But before then, we've got a few shout outs this week and a bit of competition talk, haven't we?
Should we do the competition? Because I can do it live on air then.
Yes.
Right. So I've unfortunately the sock is being cleaned at the moment. It's in desperate need.
Oh.
Yeah. So I've done it where I've folded up bits of paper. You should be able to hear this on the mic. Can you hear this?
I can. Yes.
That's me mixing them up, and I'm going to pick one at random from the pile now.
Oh, this is tense, isn't it?
Isn't it? And the winner.
I'm not putting in a drum roll, by the way. I'm just letting you know that.
That's fine. The winner of the martial law hardback that's kindly donated to us by Mr. Pat Mills is Gary Hill. Well done, Gary.
Hey, well done, Gary.
The correct answer was hammer and nails. They were DS Asquith's weapons of choice. And he got that right. In fact, I think he was the first one to come through, actually. But yeah, not the reason he won, but he got picked out fairly. And well done, Gary. Nice work. Send me your address, Gary. You've got me on the socials, and I'll send you the book through. Nice one.
Nice. What else we got?
Shout outs. We got a Kickstarter from the Spider Forest webcomic collective. Threads Creatures, our anthology of short comics about beasts of all stripes, from forgotten strays to fantastic dragons, and that's currently running as we speak. It's 19 brand new standalone short comics. They're a fair old chunk, these books. If you think the thickness of like the old Yellow Pages, fuck me, that's an old reference. But like they're big old books. So go and check them out. That's running. It's just gone about halfway over its total. It's got another 18 days to run when you listen to this. So Threads Creatures from the Spider Forest webcomic collective.
Nice.
I got a couple. So thanks for coming to the Drink and Draw, everyone, on Friday. It was a good chuckle, actually, that one. Everyone was on form. The cat is now out of the bag. Eamon is now the editor of Drawn Under the Influence, DUI number 2, volume 2. It's still raising money for charity. If you're listening to this and you're on the Slack or you're on the Facebook group or stuff, have a look for Eamon's message. And he is accepting submissions. And there's also the opportunity to pair up between writers and artists and stuff like that. There's a list of guidelines on the Slack and on the Facebook group, which you can go and have a look at, and it tells you what sort of thing Eamon is looking for. Good on him, man. Yeah, well done. Because I know it's not an easy task. There's quite a lot to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it came out. Don't forget I'm going to refer to it the award-winning issue 1.
Yes.
Still there. Getting a lot of people keen to join in. Very kind of them. Obviously, it doesn't pay anything. You're doing it totally for charity, but it is well worth it. The second one, the second one involves Eamon. So me, Eamon, and Conrad went to the Steve Dillon exhibition run by Jeff Chahill at the Northampton exhibition site. It's the Panel Gallery, 3 Abingdon Square, Northampton. It's just down from Close Encounters, the Northampton branch. and it's loads of Steve Dillon artwork that will literally take your breath away. I put some up. There's Hellblazer pages, Punisher pages and covers, Dread pages and covers, Zenith. There's even a Warrior cover, which was just my favorite, I think, of everything. We were chatting to Jeff whilst we were there, and he said, "Oh, you never guess what I had on the last exhibition." And he pulled out a Kevin O'Neill Nemesis page, a Gil Kane page, a Jack Kirby Thor page, and we're like, "Oh my god, it's amazing!" So it's really worth going to if you're up that way. And he has got, he says he hasn't got any definite dates, but there are other exhibitions coming. And while you're there, if you walk 2 shops down, the comic shop's there as well. So it's a great little place to go. And my final one is our buddy and top comics and graphic novel creator Rachel Ball is running a graphic novel course for the House of Illustration. It's a Zoom course, but it's well worth it. Learn how to make a compelling comic from someone who knows what they're talking about. It runs from the 19th of April to the 28th of June. If you go to houseofillustration.org.uk, you can learn out about a bit more, or you can contact or look at her Instagram, and it's at Rachel, which is RACHAEL, at Rachel Ball Cartoons on Instagram. Rachel's great, and she knows what she's doing. I've worked with her, and she's I can't use the word veteran because she might kill me, but she's worked with some amazing people and in some amazing magazines. She was in Deadline magazine, for God's sake, just incredible stuff. So go and look at that. It's going to be well worth it. Yeah. We've can't let the cat out of the bag, but we've the three of us have seen some work she's done for me recently, and it's just bloody lovely. Yeah, really good. They're my ones, guys.
Amazing,
fantastic.
So, without further ado, I think it's time to recommend something to you, lovely listeners at home. I was about to say viewers then.
Yeah, got a YouTube channel.
Yeah, could be viewing this on the YouTube channel.
Yeah. To everyone listening to this, here's some things for you to check out in your forthcoming week. As always, the guest can go first. We might be just dropping this on him. So.
Because I know you recommended something earlier, didn't you?
You just
Edison.
recommended something, Edison.
Yeah.
But if you've got something else you'd like to recommend to our lovely listeners, then feel free.
Okay, sure. Definitely, I have tons. So besides Tepu, that we were just talking about, I really want to recommend you guys People True. So last week you guys were talking a bit about Felipe Smith, right?
Yeah.
The first Westerner to do manga in Japan. And basically he published this manga. It's called People True, PEEPOCHOO, and it's all in manga style, black and white and stuff like that, super exaggerated faces, and it is one of the most hilarious and crazy, and I don't even know how to describe it. It's super fun, and it's a very good take on the whole thing about how Westerners view Japan as like this place where Japan is like this magical place where everyone reads manga and everyone likes anime and everyone's an otaku about everything. And then like Japanese people view the West as like this place where there's a lot of pop culture stuff, like in movies, gangsters and things like that. And both sides coming together and finding out that that is completely not true. So the story is following this young kid from Chicago who is a weeb. He loves manga, he loves anime. And he kind of wins a competition to go over to Japan for some, because of the contest he won, he gets a trip to Japan. And he's so excited about the trip to Japan, and he loves this anime called People True, and he thinks that everyone in Japan knows the song from the anime. And so when he goes there, he starts singing the song out loud, thinking that everyone will join him, like a choir and like a TV show. And then he finds out everyone just thinks he's crazy. And yeah, that's one part of it. And he goes on to find out that that Japan is just like a normal city, that everyone is not super into anime. Yeah. And basically the whole manga is just a lot of fighting, a lot of quite vulgar, quite obscene sometimes. There's a lot of scene stuff. I think Tony will love it.
Thank you, pointing that out.
And
yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a super fun read, and it's a great example of how a different perspective, because it's manga written not by a Japanese person, but Felipe Smith, you can watch his interview on Cartoonist Cafe.
Ah, cool. Okay.
He talks about how he learned Japanese from scratch, just because he was so determined to go to Japan and to make a manga. And it's a
brilliant.
super great interview, and the manga is a great story. It's not super long and it's funny. It's just a great time. Yeah.
Good.
Nice.
Yeah, I love Cartoonist Cafe, but I haven't seen that one though. I don't know how I missed that one. I'll have to go back and find it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can search Felipe Smith. It's a super great interview. He talks about how he gets he interacts with the editor in the manga publishing house, and how the editor will come over to his house to discuss about the story, to edit the story at like 2 a.m. and stuff like that, and how he almost died because he was so busy. Yeah, it's a great look into it, and the manga is a reflection of his experience over there as well. Yeah.
Real.
Oh, wow.
That sounds great.
Nice one.
I didn't know that Philip Smith was the co-designer and writer of the Robbie Ray's Ghost Rider as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Didn't know.
Yeah. Zach said that last week, I think.
He did.
Yeah. No, I didn't realise that either. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
But yes,
Cool.
the first one is a strong one. So who's going to go next?
Do you want to go next, Vince? Because I want to hear about yours.
Yes.
I've not read this yet.
What? Yes, I read Chainsaw Man. Broke Man.
Did you read it on the app?
I did indeed read it on the app.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I found it very easy reading it on my phone.
Oh, okay. Because there's smaller pages, do you think?
Yeah, because I've tried it. Yeah, and I've tried it sort of like on the web page, and it's just not the same for me. I honestly thought reading Shonen Jump might be easier for me on the website than it would be on the app. But when I started on Chainsaw Man, it was just I just kept going, and it was like, I finished that book, finished that chapter, next one, finish that chapter.
Yeah, it's like that on there. I use it on a tablet, and you just saw through them, don't you?
Yeah. Created by Tatsuki Fujimoto, Chainsaw Man, as it says on the website, Broke Man plus Chainsaw Dog Demon equals Chainsaw Man. This one was the one that when people were talking about it, I think when it was mentioned before, I was like, "Excuse me, what is this?" What one's he's got a chainsaw for his face? What, and his arm? What? So this was definitely one of those. Right, okay, let's see what this is all about, because surely there has to be some kind of story here, and there is. But it's a very kinetic, crazy story. Very simple to follow, and you will breeze through chapters of this. It's set in a world where basically devils are sort of they live amongst us. They're dangerous, malevolent, and they're kind of a lot of them are sort of proportional to whatever feelings and fears and stuff that they incite. But some human beings can form contracts with them, or like make bonds to use their power. And there are strange, twisted monsters, and there are there's loads of individuals that basically specialise in hunting demons, or devils, called devil hunters is what they call. So it's all based around, this one is particularly based around a young man named Denji. And he's a sort of down and out. He's trying to work off debt to the Yakuza that his father has accustomed. He's almost got nothing. He's trying to work as a devil hunter, and he has this It sounds well I've just described it seems really grim and dark. This isn't a grim and dark series. This is really hard to describe. But he has Pachita, which is basically he's got like a little dog companion. I say a dog. It looks like someone's drawn a face on a bread roll, and then that bread roll has a chainsaw sticking out from its nose.
Oh, I've seen this. I know what you mean. That is fucking really weird.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's living in a real world, and then there's a small animated thing that goes around with him. That's what it feels like. But even though it's a chainsaw devil, it's a very cute little dog, and they go around and they're trying to fight demons, these devils and stuff, and he does a job for someone and they get betrayed. Basically, this may seem like a spoiler, but it happens at the very beginning. They get betrayed and murdered, but as they're sort of and murdered pretty horribly. But in that moment of death, the devil makes a contract with Denji, and basically merges with him. So he's part him, part Chainsaw Devil, which is why when they merge together, his body, because he gets chopped up at the beginning, literally chopped into bits and dropped in a dumpster, and you see like his body sort of stitch itself back together. And obviously this weird Chainsaw Devil goes with him, but you don't see any of the Chainsaw Devil apart from like the sort of, what do they call it, the chain for the chainsaw, which is sticking out from his chest.
So the cord.
The cord from the chainsaw, yeah. The engine cord is just something that's just sticking out of his chest. And that, for want of a better term, that is almost like the flash ring, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's the,
okay, yeah.
You know, so he'd have these fights, and then when it kicks off, he pulls that cord, and he immediately then, he morphs into Chainsaw Man, which is basically the Chainsaw Devil that has a chainsaw for a face, sharp teeth, and it just, as soon as he unleashes that, just carnage abounds, and like guts and intestines and just absolute murder. As he's, I mean, he doesn't kill innocent people. It's always taking on these huge, and there's these monsters. Some of them, there's like a weird sea cucumber like devil. They're I mean, they're twisted sort of creations. Like you know, if someone draws a face on a pancreas and then just has it out in the street, that's probably one of the devils that you have in this. And usually he ends up getting messed up, but then he gets hired by a group of sort of devil hunters, and he immediately falls for one of them, who says, "Oh, you know, I think they come along and they help him," and then she says, "You're going to work for me now. You're going to be my dog." She starts treating him like a dog, and it's so strange. But he's like, "Oh," and and then he has a partner who's also a devil herself, but she's like a blood demon. No, she's a blood fiend, because fiends are demons that take over dead bodies and bring them back to life. So there's lots of different things going on, right? So we've got this wonderful world. I'm having so much fun reading this because it's mental.
Nuts.
It's nuts. But also, no word of a lie, he spends like 3 or 4 issues of this really desperate to complete a mission, because if he completes the mission, he'll touch a pair of boobs.
Well, I'd do that.
There's no other way. There's no other way to say it. Like
that'd be all the motivation I'd need.
Yeah, I've been on that mission myself.
Chapter 5 is literally called "A Way to Touch Some Boobs."
Damn, I'm gonna have to cancel the name of my next comic.
I mean, I just thought it was hilarious, and yeah, I mean, it hasn't happened yet, so there's lots of other things going on, but that just it makes me laugh. So this is a comedy horror action tale that's got some wonderful design in it, and this one's it's gotten quite big. This one, hasn't it?
Massive.
Yeah.
It's massive.
Yeah,
isn't it?
It's only recently that you managed to get a copy of issue 1 back again. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and I don't know what market it's, because I know a lot of these series, like One Piece, is very much like an all ages kind of strip, isn't it? This one doesn't feel like it should be marketed towards younger kids.
So that's sending manga, like young adult, teenage boys kind of.
Yeah. This is the teenage boys, because he is very much he's written like a horny teenage boy who came from
They're just
nothing.
like us then.
Yeah. But it's worth checking out. This is a real pleasant surprise, actually, and people are just murdered and murked everywhere, and
Excellent.
Yeah, it's very interesting. There's also there's an agent there who doesn't like him, but there's more to that. There's lots but the main character sort of walks through like the whole series so far like, what? Huh? What's that? He seems like a complete dumbass. He's just
definitely like us.
Yeah, caught up in this world. And there's actually just a page where, and I showed it to the guys earlier. He's just, it's a wonderful sort of detailed landscape, like a scene of him. He's crouched down with his head in his hands, and he's just saying, "I just want to touch some boobs." And I was reading it, going, "What?"
Have they got a camera on me or something?
Yeah, they're just adding demons to your life, Tony. That's what this is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, Chainsaw Man, I'm a fan. I know it's been.
That's good, man. I need to get on that. Yeah.
I know it was mentioned a while, even before the Manga Month. I think Tom told us he spoke about it back in the day. But
I've read a little bit of it because Tom got me to get the app, didn't he? So he was saying this is one of the ones you should look at.
Yeah, and it's got that great sort of, because that as soon as he pulls the cord, the demon comes out. It's cool, and the designs just really cool. I just really like it. So. Yeah, Chainsaw Man, worth checking out. Definitely worth checking out, and that's my one.
Has Tom got shares in fucking Shonen Manga?
I think he has. I can't get through to his penthouse at the moment, so we'll have to ask him. Okay, who's going next?
Shall I go next?
Yeah, go for it too.
No, you go.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Well, you've kind of already kind of covered the one I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
The excellent Never Iron Anything.
Thank you, mate.
He did with Eamon, and that's Onward Towards Our Noble Deaths, which is Shigeru Mizuki.
Yeah.
And it details his time in the Second World War, where he's serving in the Japanese army on the Pacific Island, one of the
New Guinea, New England or something. New Britain, is it called? I think. Yeah.
What's it called again? Got the book right in front of me here. New Britain. On the Papua New Guinea archipelago. I can never say that fucking word.
Archipelago.
That's the one. Yeah. And it details his time as a soldier, and then a fictionalized sort of version of. But God, any illusions you have about the kind of the glory and honor of war and all that kind of nonsense is soon put to rest by reading this title, which is just an absolute misery. Why would you want to be over there? And it's kind of like a focus on these guys' lives, and they're all over there and not really want to be. And there's a metaphor at the beginning where there's the whorehouse that's basically rocked up, and there's I think it's only like one woman or a couple of women that have got to service all these 70 blokes.
It's a massive queue, isn't there?
Yeah, and they don't get in time, and like the woman's like,
you wouldn't want to be at the back of that queue.
Yeah, like we're knackered, we're leaving, and they sing like the kind of presumably it's a cultural thing, like their whores song that they sing to the men, and that's echoed later when the men are singing it badly as they go to their fates.
It seems to be that there's a real Japanese tradition of singing, isn't there?
Yeah.
They all seem to know these songs, all of them.
Yeah,
which is pretty impressive. Really interesting.
But like all the deaths are not like kind of some noble effort of like fighting someone and dying. It's just horrible things like having accidents or getting malaria or food poisoning or accidentally getting shot in the dark where you're trying to find something to eat. And a lot of the time that these guys is spent trying to find food and trying to just make the best of a bad situation, which is just horrible. I think I told the story. I'm not sure if it was on this or was it at the Drinker Draw, but when they're crossing the river on this small pontoon and there's the cable above them and they're kind of getting from one side to the other, and they talk about crocodiles. It would be crocodiles, wouldn't it? Not alligators. One of the two.
Yeah.
But he's talking to his mate and he gets to the other side and like looks around and his mate's gone, and he was taken by a crocodile or an alligator, and and they kind of look for him and his legs wash up 2 days later.
Yeah.
And you're like, fucking hell, that's the way it can that quick. Didn't even realize that his mate had been taken, like not even like 2 feet from behind him. And the title, the Onwards Towards Our Noble Deaths, is just a kind of play of how ignoble, unnoble the deaths and
the officers just order them to go and kill themselves.
Yeah, just go run at that tank
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the sort of the Western allies, they're portrayed more in a kind of a realistic, like when a bomber flies over. It's very cartoony, the style throughout, but then when you see like the Western bombers or the Western
ships
tanks,
arriving as
ships
well,
arriving, they're almost photographic realistic, like renderings of these things, and it kind of adds a real weight to them because you're sympathetic to the main characters, but when you see the actual reality of like, fuck me, these guys are going up against a tank and they've barely got anything,
barely got any bullets.
They've got like barely any bullets. They've got like sometimes they've got a grenade between them, and so now you're going to go suicide run against them. And it's like fucking hell. It's like half the people have fucking got malaria, can barely walk or injured, and just so woefully unprepared. But they're expected to stay there, and they question why are we doing this? Like because they hear like their homeland's getting bombed to fuck. They don't know why they're there, what purpose it serves, and they're told that you can't retreat and fight some kind of guerrilla warfare. You've got to die here. That's why we're here. Yeah. And obviously, you've been in the field being told that. It's a massive cultural thing. But I think if you tried that with British troops, maybe they'd be a bit more reticent.
Well, they would these days, I'm sure.
Yeah,
but yeah. It's so sad because these people, they're not professional soldiers. They've been drafted into the war, and you've got these officers who really don't care about them. And no spoilers for the end, because I think everyone should read this because I genuinely think it's mouse good.
Yeah,
there's a death at the end, and it's so impactful you wouldn't believe it, because you've lived for 200 pages with these guys who are like trying to dig up roots to eat them, and they've got malaria and dysentery, and they're just being treated so badly, and there's this thing that happens at the end, and it will break you. So well done.
It's a bit like near the end where one of them drinks from this pool of water. He's like, well, why are you doing that? You're going to get immediate dysentery. He's like, well, what we're going to do now doesn't really matter, does it? I'm not going to see that. I'm not going to get the effects of that. So it's like, heavy, but very, very well done. And I mean, I think the book says that it was one of the first comics to kind of tackle this, like an autobiographical.
And a difficult subject for Japan when you bear in mind what side they were on.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, culturally, I think from reading, it took a long time to get over that, as it would any nation state. I mean, look at America, and we're getting way heavy here. I mean, America and Vietnam, they're still kind of
still can't deal with it, can they? Yeah. And I mean, if you double that, because you've got not only the impact of them, siding with Nazi Germany and fighting these, often quite nasty wars, but you've also got the double down of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the just awful treatment, and then them basically being under the thumb of the American GIs, stuff.
Yeah, and I can't imagine that fucking went very well.
Yeah, I mean, post-war Japan, we talked about a bit with Helen, didn't we? Is just an incredible period for some just amazing manga. You just wouldn't believe it. Yeah,
it's
Drawn and Quarterly as well. So good old Drawn and Quarterly, sticking it out. They're putting out all of his work at the moment. They're repackaging some more of his work at the moment, I think.
Nice one. And this was the dude that lost his arm, his predominant arm, and then carried on making comics.
Learned to draw with the other arm.
What a fucking dude.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, none of these millennial creators now worrying about their Uber Eats hasn't arrived. But yeah.
I mean, if you lost an arm and said, right, you got to learn to make comics with the other arm, I'd be like, oh, fuck it. No.
I might just about learn to whack off, but that'd be about it, I think. Yeah.
I think you'd probably master that after 24 hours.
I think half a day probably. Yeah. So do you mind?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so mine is in relation. So we've done seinen, we've done various sort of genres in manga. Mine is Gekiga. Now this is the genre and it's one that I've kind of levitated to. Literal meaning means dramatic pictures, and it's aimed at adult audiences. We saw a lot of the still very popular books, and I think what Dan just talked about falls into Gekiga as well, is we're around the late 60s, early 70s. They tend to have a grittier, more underground edge to them often. The storytelling often can be quite more violent. They have a brutalism often to them. I found it really interesting because they predate what we saw as the arrival of, partly as the arrival of adult comics in the English and American audiences. I know there was more to it, don't write in, but there's this sort of thing where, do you remember in like the early 80s, comics aren't for kids anymore, Look at this.
Yeah.
You know, but Japan were well ahead of the game. They were doing that. They saw it as a market that is available for all different people. It's similar to as in what I'm saying to the graphic novel movement we sort of see then in the 80s, and we see again in the last sort of 10 years, haven't we? Again, where there's this sort of push to an adult audience. There are levels, quite high levels of violence often in them. There's levels of sexuality in them often, but there's also a mature attitude to storytelling, which you don't quite see. There's a lady called Irma Nunez who wrote for the Japan Times, and she talks about how this period and this genre of manga was used to experiment as well. And I think it actually became a movement. There was one of these, you know how you get movements in poetry and music and stuff, and they actually wrote a manifesto of it at one point. Quite avant-garde, pushing boundaries. Some of the probably notable books you may have heard of: A Drifting Life by Yoshishiro Tatsumi, Gogo 13 by Teiko Sahita, Red Coloured Elegy, I know they've got that in Gosh of Man by Seiichi Heishi, and Lone Wolf and Cub is classed as a gekigo as well from its content. But the ones I wanted to mention were two books I've read recently on my 100 Days of Manga. One is called Slum Wolf and one is called Trash Market. They're both again brought out in the UK, one by Drawn and Quarterly and one by someone else, New York Review of Comics. They're by Tadao Tsuzuki, and they are in the sort of subgenre of gekiga. They're referred to as kimin, which means the abandoned people. And there's also a term in Japanese called burakumin, which means people who live in the hamlets and the villages, or in other words, often the poor areas. Tsuzuki himself grew up in a rough area of Tokyo, and as he tells it, to avoid being beaten at home, he would wander the red light district of his area, and it clearly had an effect on the way he tells stories. And I'm going to say about him as well, he's seen very much as an underground artist in Japan. And this was originally, it's a series of short stories over these two books, and they were originally published in an alternative manga magazine called Garo. I would love a copy of that, man. That just sounds like the Zap comics, you know, it's that sort of thing, Drawn and Quarterly magazine, or, you know, something like that. It has all this experimental work. It's comparable to the beat poetry that was going on in the 60s and 70s, I'm going to say, you know, the sort of Haight-Ashbury kind of stuff. If you looked at it quickly, you would think it's got a looser style to it. It does look underground, even from a Western point of view. If you open it and look at it, it's not the big-eyed females. It's none of that. It's multiple panels on a page. Both the comics by Drawn and Quarterly and by the New York Review of Comics have published it in a Western format for reading stories. Now, but what they both do feature, they feature short stories that happen in the very poor areas of Tokyo and Japan post-war. So you've got people who were ex-soldiers coming home. You've got people who are just wandering the country because they're so poor. There's very little money. It's not the flash Tokyo that we know of, flash and cool Tokyo that we see on the television or know of today. And it deals with fights with GIs, prostitution, men whose women have to, men whose wives have become prostitutes, and the poorness of not growing crops and bits of the land that was still affected by the nuclear, by the bombings and stuff like that. Heartbreaking, brutal, often quite transgressive in a way. And it just shows how Japan's really grown. You know, they've really sort of pulled their trousers up and got on with it, haven't they, from what happened? You got to admire them.
Oh, God, yeah.
And these two books are, if you're into that, like I am, if you're into that sort of underground kind of feel to a comic, these will be up your street. But I was chatting to Vince Bond at 11 o'clock, there, Vince, and he was saying that he found it quite affecting, and I did as well. It's quite an impactful book. It's not a book you would sit and read it all, because you might suffer from severe depression after reading all these horrible. Vagabond Plane is one of the stories, and about a man, and he travels from town to town, ending up in fights, and he's this sort of super tough guy, and he's got this thing about just beating up GIs, and he just lives for violence. And the death of Ryoichi Agoshi, which is a really interesting one. And it's how they all used to live. There's a historical content to it as well, but it's just brutal beat poetry of a comic. Actually, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, that's my one. So it's Slum Wolf and Trash Market, both of them by Tadao Tsuzuki.
Nice one.
There you go. Plenty of differing kinds of comics for you this week from all genres, it seems. That's part of the joy of this show. So we'll add to your wish list and make you hate us, but in the best kind of way. And we hope you have enjoyed this week's jaunt and chat into the comic realm. If there's anything you want us to talk about in upcoming shows, or what you want us to talk about for our manga musings next week, then you can email us awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter @theawesomepod, where we'll be putting shout outs, asking questions, etc. etc. If you do the Book of Faces, go to facebook.com/awesomecomicspodcast. Join the community group Awesome Comics Talk on Facebook. There's also the Slack channel, the Awesome Comics Podcast Slack channel. Get in touch with us to join us there. There's a great group of people and lots of different chats and all kinds going on that website. On that, it's not a website, is it? What do they call it? It is a website, and there's an app, and there's all kinds. Isn't it? It's
right. I'm not sure how you class it, actually. Yeah.
It is, but it is classy. Yeah. Much like our website, awesomecomics.podbean.com. And if you listen to this episode on any other sort of network, if you listen to us on Apple, then please subscribe and leave a review and get the word out about this show and everything we talk about. If you listen to us on other networks like Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife, what other networks are we on, Tony?
There's the other network, Pod Sonia the Marvelous.
There's an inside joke between the host there.
I'm going to find her.
That sounded a little bit scary, Tony. But thank you again to Edison Neo for joining us, coming back and joining us, man.
Cheers, dude.
Cheers, man.
We really
big fans.
Thank you.
Yeah, when you're earning big money and driving around in a limo at the at San Diego, remember us, yeah. That's all we ask.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we may actually see you soon in the near future.
Yes,
but we won't say
fantastic.
we won't say anything about that on the air.
When you're here, we'll give you a hotel out though.
Oh yeah.
Ooh. I'll take you up on that.
But where can people find us all online, etc.? Tony?
Patreon.com/Tribute Press. Something quite surprising coming this week. Watch out. Yes.
Lovely. Dan?
You can find me on Twitter at Vanguard Comic, and you can read Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com.
Nice. You can find me on social media at Jester Diablo and our wonderful, magnificent guest, Edison Neo. Where can they find you and your Patreon and your social media, etc.?
Before I get to that, I do have a small announcement.
Oh,
okay.
So basically, in a strange turn of events, I lost my job recently.
I saw that you announced it on Patreon, didn't you? Yeah.
I did a post on there about my Patreon, and I am, funnily enough, I am now a full-time cartoonist.
Oh wow!
Full-time comic artist. Yeah.
Awesome.
So So you guys were mentioning about my work rate about comics, right? It's just gonna get more. Go up more, yeah. Yeah, so basically, I'm kind of concentrating on my comics for now. And so the support on Patreon will be a great help. My Patreon is on patreon.com/neocomicart, and basically everything Neo Comic Art, you can find it online, Instagram, Twitter, my website. Everything is Neo Comic Art. Yeah, so you can just Google that actually. Yeah.
Nice.
So,
and you post regularly as well.
Any support will be great.
Yeah. On Instagram,
yes,
you when you're doing your sketches for your Kickstarters and stuff, you always like posting those and stuff. So and your sketches are great.
Yeah,
I'm lucky enough to have a couple.
Yeah, I've got one in front of me here actually. Yeah.
Awesome.
Good stuff, man.
Thanks. Yeah. So on Patreon, it will be stuff like the thought process behind these sketches. I go through each one of them. There's the process of the pages, the scripts, and the thought process as well, and how the dialogue changes drastically, and things like that, and a lot of behind the scenes stuff, basically. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, anyone if you listen to this show, you love the insider stuff and finding out how comics are made. So get on that.
Yeah, and you're also on the Slack if anyone's got any questions for you about anything. Yeah. Get on there and have a chat.
Yep.
So go forth, people. subscribe to his Patreon, get his comics. Yeah, I mean, if anything, you'll be first to know when the Kickstarters are coming out, and you definitely want to get on them. Trust me.
Yeah.
And yes,
very prompt as well, man.
Yeah,
got to be complimented for your promptness. So sometimes I think it's ended and it arrives like a couple of days later with your Kickstarters. They're very good, man.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So you want it.
Yeah. In fact, you won't even have to wait for the Kickstarter, because when I'm done with the comic as a patron in one of the tiers, you get the comic sent straight to you.
That's it. You do.
You don't
I
even
think
have
that's
to
what I'm
bank.
on.
Yeah.
Wow. Good stuff, man.
There you go. Value for money. Our guests and this show, amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for listening, everyone. Wherever you are in the world, we hope you're doing okay, happy, healthy, and just being safe out there, because it's a mad old world at the moment. But just keep reading comics, keep loving comics, and keep making them. Edison's going to be making them. I mean, he's probably been making them while we've been talking. He's going to make them while he's sleeping.
I've just sent him some fan art.
Yeah,
that was awesome. Saw that.
So, you go forth and read loads of comics and make loads of comics. And from Dan, Tony, Edison, and myself, have a brilliant week. And come on, I've been off a week, so come on. I know you've been practicing this. This would be good. What should they do, guys?
What do you mean? Stay awesome.
Stay awesome. Not
Very
so
good.
great, Vince.
Well, you know. I guess it's back to normal then. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you later.